Okay, I was trying to get this. I was trying to get the sign like perfectly in the background. It is not doing it for me, so I think we're gonna have to settle. Which one's better? I gotta start making this fit better, but okay. Well, I know you guys know the topic, so let me see if I can put the volume. Okay, volume up. Okay, so 3 o'clock on the dot Eastern Standard Time. Eastern Standard Time is always going to be the time that I utilize because of the simple fact that I'm actually from the East Coast. I'm from Miami. Happy, how are you? D, my December lady. How are you guys? I love you guys. Have you actually thought about you when I was drafting the notes for this topic? If you don't recall, like I said to you, it's actually easier. Thank you for liking the live. It's actually easier to go abroad married. And I say this for several reasons. It's through experience and seeing things, okay? I'm obviously solo, so I'm having a completely different experience. But yeah, like I notate like obviously how I see the couples who come married from America, and I see how they go through things together. They have this mutual cultural understanding, they know each other and things like that. It's a whole nother thing, different thing when you're navigating an intercultural relationship, not an interracial but an intercultural relationship. A lot of people don't really realize that difference, but it is an important difference to notate. It doesn't mean don't do it, but it is important to notate. Okay, somebody from, like for example, I'll give myself as a personal example. I dated a Jamaican man, and we both were black. When you saw us as a black couple, but culturally we had different ways of operating because he was from Jamaica and I'm Haitian American. So we had some similarities, we had some differences. So yeah, intercultural relationships is a whole nother different thing. And it could be another thing, like let's say you find Zimbabwean in America, right? So he's lived in America, let's say 20 years. He's been Americanized in some ways. Most people, you understand what I'm saying? And he understands what you typically are gonna need, or what some of the things that you want. So, that's different. But when you go to a whole nother country and all that other stuff, and you're in an intercultural relationship and the person hasn't been to where you're from, it's that's one of the reasons why I say people who come already married, they don't know how much of an advantage that they actually technically have. And and another thing too, sometimes when you're a single person, like let's say even in your hometown, being single sometimes it can be a little bit lonely. As humans anywhere in the world, we're like kind of programmed, not kind of, we are programmed to be social. Okay, so being alone, you can do that for a while. Now I'm the type of person, I'd be single for like 2 years, 3 years in between. I don't mind being alone, but sometimes it can get to you, for as any individual. And when you have your husband that you trust, who got your back, and he's with you in a foreign country, that's a certain level of comfort the solo travelers or the solo immigrants or the solo expats or whatever, they don't have. And as a result, I've noticed, even when I was in the Peace Corps, or wherever I am, so what some like I've seen Americans talking about Americans in different countries, they start to resort to just kind of dating any and everybody just because they want somebody, because it's so overwhelming being by themselves in another country. And then, find themselves in situations that they typically wouldn't have been if it wasn't for the loneliness and being abroad somewhere completely by themselves. Okay? So that's why I said that, happy, when you're coming married abroad, even if you both are foreigners, even if your spouse is from that country or whatever, it just tends to be a lot better and easier um, than, navigating the complexities of an intercultural foreign relationship. Not saying that they're not good, but it is a level of complexity. Just because you both are black or whatever it is, or if you're both Asian, doesn't mean that you guys are, going to be able to understand each other very easily in a cultural dynamic. All right. Yes, it is a pro. I'm telling you, like, I remember sometimes crying myself to sleep, like if I've had a hard day or if I've had a hard situation or if I've had a overstimulating situation. If I'm gonna cry, it's gonna be in my bed by myself. Okay? I do not have a husband to rock me to sleep. You understand what I'm saying? Or if a guy, like an expatriate guy, like, well, he could get a girl. It's easier. It's a little bit easier for them. I'm not even going, but you're not gonna have that for sure comfort zone. And that's what I will say as a solo person. You could do it, but you just gotta know that you're gonna have that caveat to deal with. It is what it is, okay? All right. Okay, so this month is October, and October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Now, that is in the US, that's everywhere. Okay. Um, and one thing that I want you guys to, I'm reading off my notes, by the way, on the laptop. This topic matters to expats, travelers, and those dreaming of traveling abroad. And why is that? You're saying, well, what does that have to do with me? Okay, what does that have to do with me? Domestic violence abroad and blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. So think about it in America. You're hearing Domestic Violence Month in America, right? You're like, okay, yeah, because that happens here. Do you know that the country you're going to is considered domestic to them? You understand what I'm saying? Like your home, like let's say you live in Austria. That is your home. That's domestic to you. But there's somebody from outside going to Austria, okay? So domestic violence happens everywhere. There's not one place it doesn't happen. If somebody tells you, "Oh no, we don't do that here," don't mind them. Okay? There's always one, okay? So Happy says, but there are some cons because the culture of a new place can clash with what you find as acceptable marriage behavior. This could be true. Yeah, this could be true. I would say one of the examples for what you just said, Happy, is PDA or public displays of affection. In America, public displays of affection are a lot more common. There's some culture, like I'm thinking of one off the top of my head. In other countries that are very conservative, they're not with that. They do not want to see you kissing, and even if the person is your husband. So for me, what I would say as far as that, you just gotta take a while and learn the local norms. What do husbands and wives do in public? Okay, what is acceptable? What's not acceptable, etc., etc. Greetings, but I think it's overall emotionally a lot more stable. That is the thing. A lot, but there's always pros and cons to everything. But emotionally, I feel like it could be a lot more stable. I think also another thing too is that maybe stress from the outer stress from being in a new environment might be something that might weigh on some marriages too. Maybe, people start to clash out against each other, but it's really dependent again on the unit. Have you guys trained yourselves? Have you guys talked about this and stuff like that? Yeah. Oh, so funny talking about the Ghanaian men taking more than one wife. I was talking to my friend about that like yesterday. So legality in the legal aspect of it, they can actually only marry one. But traditionally, they can have multiple wives. If they try to marry more than one, it will be considered bigamy. Okay, and that's illegal in Ghana. But traditionally, yeah, they be having multiple wives. And we were actually talking about this because there's this great Ghanaian musician called Daddy Lumba. And he has done Ghanaian high life. That's the genre that you guys should know about. And he died recently. And unfortunately, he had a wife in Germany who he had separated from for like 15 years. And then he went back to Ghana and married a lady only in the traditional aspect, not in the legal aspect. He never divorced from his wife in Germany, but they separated for 15 years, and then he continued to have like 5 or 6 kids with the local wife. And we were just talking about that because like some people were like bashing the local wife, and then some people were saying no, but he's legally married to the one in Germany. And there's it's like this whole thing in Ghana where people are like, oh, she's a side chick, but he married her like traditionally. But in all technicality, I was talking to my friend. He was like, yeah, you can legally marry one wife, but people tend to have, you can traditionally marry more than one. I commonly hear it. Yeah, I know people who have more than one wife. so yeah. Culture is different. Now, with that being said, I don't know if a guy would like want to come down to Ghana. He's not even Ghanaian. He's gonna be like, "Oh, I want to be like the locals. I want to marry another wife." I don't know, but legally, he can't do that. It's supposed to be one. It's bigamy in Ghana. You can't do that. All right, and it's very different. You know what I told him? I actually told him. I said when I was in South Africa, I knew somebody who was getting married, and on the document it was saying like, is it like the first wife, second wife, like not like divorce one? And in South Africa, you can legally marry more than one wife. So there's actually a show. Let me tell you the show that chronicles this guy. And is it 4 or 5 wives? Let me see. South Africa. It's on. You can get it on YouTube. Let me see if I can give you guys the name. South African multiple wives show. But yeah, they're not afraid for that. And what is it called? Oh, it's in their local name, so I don't even want to attempt to say this. Yeah. There's a whole YouTube show on it. Let me show you guys. Was it on? Oh, he had 4 wives. My bad. He had 4 wives. I used to see that in South Africa too. Oh, sorry. I didn't even see that. I'm trying to find you guys the name of the show. Like D said, double tap your phone to the top right corner of the screen to hit the thumbs up button, like, comment, share, and subscribe. Thank you. Um, Featuring multiple wives is Utando Nestumba. Yeah, he was a businessman. He had 4 wives. Let me show you guys it was on the BBC. Let me turn it around so you guys can see the name of the show. Or maybe I should leave it in the chat. But it was interesting. And I used to see it in South Africa quite a bit too. Okay, let me show it to you. So you see, that's the guy and his 4 wives. And then they have it on they had it on a reality TV show. I said the name, but probably not correctly, but it's on there. If you want to see it. But yeah, okay, so back to our comment. I mean, every place is different. You got to know that. Um, all right, so we are back to, yeah, I mean, culture dictates what's right and wrong. I want to give you guys some cultural training. I want you to understand culture always dictates what's right and what's wrong. Okay? Just like in some cultures, circumcision is like the norm. Some cultures, it's not the norm. You understand what I'm saying? Culture always dictates what's right and wrong. Remember that. Okay? What you think is absolutely crazy is normal to other people. Always remember that. All right. So we often talk about visas, housing, and culture shock, but not about what happens when things go wrong behind closed doors. Okay? So nobody should say Jesse doesn't say, because Jesse does say. If you don't listen, that's you. Okay? But I say these things. I'm not getting paid. YouTube, I'm not getting paid on social media as of yet. I got like a $10 check once from TikTok. That was it. For a video that was like 1,000,000 views. So I hope you know I'm not getting paid. I'm doing this because what I realize is, especially as Black people, we don't have too much of like a record of us like going abroad, especially in the African context. Okay, most of the times I remember, like I keep always saying, when I was growing up and saying I was going to do this, people were like, "Oh, that's some white people stuff." So, and you can see their experience is very well documented. But what happens to us? Okay. So we have to talk about the good and we have to talk about the not so good. Not because I wish that for you, but because if it comes to your door, I want you to be prepared to navigate it. Okay? All right. So let's get into it. And you know you can ask questions all the way through, okay? I'm not going to be on here forever, but if you have a question, I'm here to answer it. All right? So, domestic abroad, what is it? Let's define it. It's not just physical, it's emotional, it's financial, and it's psychological abuse. Okay? It's not just somebody punching you in the eye. It can be somebody withholding money or withholding you from getting money or from somebody playing with your mind, manipulation, narcissists. Okay? So I I'm pretty sure you know what it looks like domestically, but it takes on a different form abroad. Okay? And if you've seen my post on my post tab, I post on some different things you need to look for when you're dealing with it abroad. Okay. So if you know any girls, guys who are going abroad, and this is also, again, not only is it emotional, physical, psychological, it could be for men or women. Okay. So you need to know what it looks like. If you have somebody who's thinking about going abroad, don't tell them to just look at all the fun attractions and things that they could do. Even if you're going on a peace love parade mission where you're looking for peace and everything, people will always come in your lane. Okay? Think about where you come from. There's people who come for you even if you don't go for them. So in the case that somebody comes in your lane and they're not coming in there with good intention, you need to be able to spot it and you need to be able to deal with it accordingly. Okay? All right. So let's talk about how abuse can look different abroad. Okay? So, some of the big things that you're going to want to look for: a partner controlling things like visas. Okay? So, this is even if whether you went by yourself and you met somebody there, or let's say that the guy is from that country or the girl is from that country, and then when they get there, because they know and you don't, they start to control your route to getting visas. Okay? Legal stay. That is a very big red flag. That is a run for your life, okay? Because it's only going to progressively get worse from that. You guys want to know a movie that shows you like the example of where there was an American woman. She married a man. I don't know if it was Iraq, Afghanistan, one of those countries, okay? And he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna take you to go see my family there, right? We're only gonna stay for a couple of weeks." He did once he landed in the country, because I don't think she was really well versed in the country's rule, and she didn't think her husband was going to do this. When they got in the country, she didn't know that the woman and the child is the property of the husband. So when they got in the country, he said, "We're not going back." And she's like, "What do you mean we're not going to go back?" And she tried to go to the embassy and they couldn't help her because in that country, she's his property, her and the child. So when he said they wasn't going back, they weren't going back. And this is based off of a true life story of an American woman from the Midwest. It is called Not Without My Daughter. It was in the 80s or 70s. And they wrote a book. There's a film with it about it. It's called Not Without My Daughter. So the lady knew she could escape, but because he owned the daughter as well, he was like, fine, if she wanted to go to, like, let's say, the grocery store, he'll be like, you can go, but you're going to leave my daughter here. Because he knew that she was not going to try to escape the country without her daughter. So it's called Not Without My Daughter. So you'll see abuse where sometimes it can be from a person who they've met you in the US. Yeah, you've probably seen it happen, and they take you to their country, or like I said, you can meet the person there. Okay, it's called Not Without My Daughter. And the girl, that's when the girl was a baby. She's written a book about it now. And what had happened was the guy, apparently he suffered some type of prejudice in the US and stuff like that, and he didn't tell her plans. He just was like, he was like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna go see family, da, da, da." He was like, "We're not going back." And she had to deal with it and kept trying. She had to find a mule to get out of that situation. Okay, so you need to be very kind of well versed on at least general knowledge on how the country runs. What is their perspective as far as, especially women? You need to know those things. It's not a game. Okay. All right. So yeah. So partner controlling visas. So think about visa. Okay. If you do not have documentation in the country and you're illegal, okay, Think about how people in America who don't have documentation, how is their lives? Think about it. They're working under the table. People can threaten to call ICE or threaten this and that. People manipulate them. Oh, if you don't do this, I'm gonna call ICE. I'm gonna get you deported. Da, da, da. That is what is like. Hey, welcome. That is what it's like when you don't have proper documentation. Okay, people, you become subject to abuse. Okay, and I don't care if the country you're in is very lax about immigration or they're very serious about immigration, like the US is, okay? You need to ensure that you have legal stay. And if you don't, the implications of it is manipulation and abuse if you're unlucky. Because the same people who are, let's say, for example, saying, oh, you don't really need so much visa to stay here, it's not so strict here. If you don't, let's say you don't agree to do something that they want to do, then they can say, oh, but I can report you to immigration. You don't have documentation. They can now use it to manipulate you. Okay. And you don't leave you finding out whether how to get the visa in a in like a boyfriend's girlfriend's hands, okay? Because maybe they might be playing games, maybe they might be delaying you from getting one because they want to have that power over you, okay? I know of a case where this one girl was dating some guy, and his brother was an immigration officer, and she had been trying to find documentation and things like that, and the person was like, no, 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 chill, chill, it's not that serious. And then what he does is he calls the immigration brother, puts him on the phone, and after speaking their own language, and and then he's like, oh yeah, talk to him, he's going to tell you the same thing. And then the immigration officer goes and tells the girl that, yeah, you don't really need nothing, just as long as you behave in the country, nobody will do anything to you. Later, the boyfriend goes and threatens to get her deported. You need to have a visa, and you need to or residency. You need to find out what residency is. I don't care how lax the country is. I don't care how serious the country is. You also need to have an avenue where you can do it yourself. You don't rely on people, okay? Because that little power token you give them can put you into trouble. If they don't like something you do, or you don't give people that power. What is the legal avenue? And that's one of the reasons why I'm doing the Move Abroad to Ghana tour. You're going to have immigration officials come and talk to you. What documents you need to stay? How do you get it? How much is it going to cost? Because remember, I said this last time. I almost got somebody, I kept looking for visa myself. How much did somebody try to quote me? 4,000 US dollars. How much was the visa really? 350 US dollars. When you don't know, it's dangerous. And people will manipulate you, and they will try to take advantage of you. You understand what I'm saying? But and then on top of that, like when you just don't have the network. But I will be taking you to these places. I'll have you talking to people, and then on top of that, I'll be making sure, obviously, that you're going to be going down the right path. But when you're doing these things by yourself, but again, like I said, do not put that power in anybody's hands. You need to find out your own paperwork, and you need to make sure you have a visa, okay, or residency, permanent stay, because otherwise people will mess with you. I've seen it with police. I've seen it with relationships. If somebody tries to control you from getting a visa, if somebody tries to prevent you from getting a visa, then that's a red flag, because they don't want you to have freedom, okay? Because when you have like when you have residency and you have permanent stay, that gives you strength, that gives you freedom, that gives you access to move around, that gives you, if you need to make money, that gives you access to do that. Okay, it gives you a lot of power. Another thing too, if a partner is controlling money, okay, that's a huge red flag. Financial abuse is very common. Sometimes people don't even realize it, okay? How many times have people stayed in situations because of money? Housing, okay? You don't know how you're going to acquire your own housing, or they don't want you to stay here, they don't want you to stay there. You don't know any better because you're from outside the country. Huge red flag. Huge. All right, isolation. I have spoken to you guys severally about isolation, okay? You have no one here. That whole concept, okay? That is a form of manipulation abroad. Okay? Your family is not there. your friends are not there, people you work with, whatever. You not knowing, how to deal with local police, how those different things like that. I've actually been under stress for that. Like I don't know how to. You have to understand that every country does their own different things and have a certain approach. Okay. But going back to isolation, I'm huge on this. Do not, and I'm like a person who I tend to do stuff myself. I travel myself, da 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 da. But this is the thing that I want you to understand. You need to find a local group, okay? Expatriate group, anything like that, okay? And something where you don't have to be up under them all the time. You don't have to go to every meeting, but you need to have that group. You need to have that network where if something goes down and they know where you're from, they know how it is for you over there. They know how things run, and they probably know how things run there. At least they have different varying levels. Maybe there's some people in there for 20 years. There's some people new just like you. There's some people there for 5 years. But you need to have that group that if something happens, you calling them because there's resources in there. Okay, there's resources. There's power in knowledge, and there's power in resources. One thing I want you to understand very well right now. Some countries, this is more true than others. Who you know, who you know. Okay, in America's a very individualist society where you can just kind of like figure things out. Things are on the internet, etc., etc. Some stuff, other countries, it's not like that. Google's not your best friend. Who do you know? Who does that person know? Okay? And you need to find groups. You need to find groups where you can, okay, well, this thing happened to me. How do I approach the police? How do I do this? This thing happened to me with my landlord, even. How do I approach it? You need to make sure. And if you take one thing from me, you need to hear me when I say this. Do not isolate yourself. It's dangerous. It's literally dangerous. Okay. And if, let's say, you have a girlfriend or a boyfriend and they see you going to the African Americans of Ghana meeting or the African Americans of Korea meeting, and they say, oh, but why are you going there? Or, and how do you know that? Run, because they don't want you to get people who can potentially help you navigate the new place you're in. They want you to be by yourself so that they can manipulate you as they see fit. Okay? So if that person, why are you telling everybody you here? Why you, da da da, why you, you need to have networks separate from whoever it is that you're dealing with. Okay? It's a form of abuse to keep you isolated. And if you see it, run. All right, questions for me so far. Okay, so I just actually mentioned it briefly. Fear of police or deportation keeping victim silence. I know, again, fear of deportation. Even if you're going to a developing country and you're from a extremely developed country, you're coming from France or you're coming from London that has one of the biggest economic blah 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 yada 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 yada. Okay? If you decide to pick up and go to another country, you've spent a lot of money. You've got an apartment, you got in a car, you've emotionally invested in the new country and things like that. You're building a business. You're this, you're that, da, 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 da. You're going to be afraid of deportation. And maybe your local boyfriend, girlfriend, spouse, whatever, may know that. And they might manipulate that. Okay. Because you've invested so much, it's not going to be easy for you to want to go. You're not going to want to go because you've sacrificed so much. Sometimes people know this. And then again, they can utilize this to manipulate you. And that's what, you know what I'm saying? So that somebody threatening to deport you, all those different things, that's a form of abuse. It's a form of manipulation. And it does happen. Even in the US, people do that. You understand? There's no place in the world, again, that people do not do such things. I want to make that clear. Whether you're going to Bali to study Buddhism and peace and da 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 da, whether you're going to, Austria, whatever it is, there's people who can do that to you. So be very cognizant of it. Fear of police. Not necessarily you having a fear of police because you did something wrong, okay? And it could be a fear because maybe your visas or your documents are not in order yet. You're in the process of it. The person, you're thinking that the person has a little bit, and this is where the issue, it becomes an issue. There's a equilibrium problem, okay? And here's the equilibrium problem. The local person, they know the system. Thank you, Coco. But it's important, my love. It's important. The local person knows the system. They know how to deal with police. They know how to get things done. They have people to support them. But you don't. You don't know anything. Okay. So you don't even know how to approach the police. You know how to approach the police in the US or from Germany where you're from. But you don't know how to deal with the police in the local context. Already there. They already got a little power over you. You want to go to the police, but you don't know how. You understand what I'm saying? So you, and then on top of that, because your paper is not in order, it gives you a little sense of fear. You're like, well, they're gonna say he's from here and I'm not, and da 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 da. The fear of the police and deportation is a real thing that keeps victims silent. Okay, be very cognizant of that. This is why going back to finding your own network, your own group, not his friends, not her friends, not da da da. Finding your own, you need to find people who can support you and know what you're going through. And finding your own groups is very crucial because if you know that person in the African American group of Zimbabwe where you live, they can tell you, well, this is how you approach the police. This is how you get documentation. This is how you're this and that and that. Okay? All right. All right. So the added layer of isolation. So I want to go more into this because I keep advocating for you. Even me as a loner, I'm telling you, don't do this. So being far from home, again, it magnifies loneliness. You don't know where you are. And again, there's different waves of being abroad. People don't realize this. I always tell you guys this, but maybe you don't. I have to post this chart. There's the euphoria moment when you're new, first couple of months, you're happy, da 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 yada yada yada. Yada. But after like the first 3 months, I think it is, it usually crashes and reality is starting to hit set in. And then that's when you start to really get alone and all these different things like that. Then there's cultural barriers. Again, maybe you're a black person and you're going to Rwanda. Okay, great. The people are black there. You look alike, but in here, you're not the same because there's cultural differences. There's cultural barriers, okay? And that can be something that can fatigue you if you're under pressure. Okay. Language. Okay. In Rwanda, they speak English, they speak French, and also Italian, which is actually a fact. Um, but and they also speak tribal languages. But maybe when you go to the police and you're having problems with your girlfriend or your boyfriend, who that you're having domestic problems with, he starts to speak a tribal language while you're there, and you don't understand. How will you defend yourself? Hmm? Okay. So these are all things that it comes into play. All right. Lack of local family make it harder to seek help. That's an important thing again. If you don't got your sister who you know that she rides at dawn for you and she's a flight away and things like that, you know what I'm saying? And something happens, what's your contingency plan? What's the contingency plan? Okay? So that's the question. That's why, and again, going back to having your own network, going back to having your own network, you need to have them you need to have the people in that group as a contingency plan. Also, you know what I'm saying? Like, okay, because they probably have things in order. They probably have crisis management. Okay, they probably have something like, okay, if something happens to somebody, like I remember going to one of the group meetings, and they, from things to like, if somebody dies abroad, how to ship the person back. Those are things, because you're human, you can die anywhere. You understand what I'm saying? If you're in the hospital and you ain't got nobody, what's the plan? Like that's why even though I don't go every time, I pay my dues and I go from time to time. You understand what I'm saying? Because you need to hear these things and you need to be abreast of these things. And if something, God forbid, were to happen to you, you need to have somebody who can, help you navigate. All right. Abusers. So let's talk about abusers in particular. They're skilled, okay? A lot of them, this is not their first rodeo, or they know they've practiced. Okay, so you come into Thailand. Okay, they choose vulnerable environments, okay, where their partner has limited support. Maybe they've been chatting you up on the phone or talking to you on the phone, and it's all sweet and da 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 da. But once you get to Thailand, okay, he knows that you don't have, again, your family, you don't have this, da da da. You're vulnerable now. You're his. Okay. So he knows that. And he'll take every opportunity, he or she will take every opportunity that they can, every liberties that they can with you, and then also again try to isolate you. All right, so financial and legal vulnerabilities, let's talk about that. So many victims depend on a partner for immigration status, jobs, or finances. Again, do not do that. Find professionals, okay, because you will pay double when you do that, and it's the wrong person. Sometimes it might work out. I'm not gonna hold you on that, you understand? But if you don't, if it doesn't, it can be hell. It can lead to being in a situation where you could be domestically abused. Okay, that's why you need to go and find, okay, who's the professional, who knows how to get immigration, who knows how to get work there, who knows how to get a bank, a banking uh access to a bank. These are the little things that you take for granted in your home country, because you can easily just walk in and do it, right? But when you're abroad and you need a bank account, you need a card to survive, you need, a job access to make money. If an abuser, again, some of these people, it's like they're professional pretty much, um finds that they can block that from you to create dependency on them, they can do it to you. Okay, that's why you gotta find the professionals. I One thing I've noticed too, especially in Ghana, it's not so super expensive, as long as you find the right people. Okay, find the right people on your own. Okay, all right. So, how some abusers might make use the legal system as leverage, or paperwork as leverage, controlling a passport, delaying visa renewal, refusing to add you to a lease because they're saying you're foreign. It all can happen. Safety and support strategies. Okay, so let's talk about that. Let's talk about some tangible takeaways. This is where I need you to take notes. If you haven't, this is the time to take notes. All right. So a few things that we've already said, is, we don't want you must not isolate. You must have a local network that belongs to you, not to your girlfriend, not to your boyfriend, a local network that belongs to you, that can be in your corner if in case you would fall into such a situation. Okay. Um, so number one, and I actually recommend this before even calling the local police sometimes. Save your embassy and consulate's emergency contact in your phone. In your phone. Not anywhere in your phone. Like, you could just press it and you call them. Okay? Especially the US embassy, you're paying taxes. You're paying for this stuff. You understand what I'm saying? You need to have them on like a speed dial. Okay? I don't care if you're in one of the safest quote unquote countries. I don't care if you're in a dangerous, whatever it is. You need to know, what is Colombia's consulate emergency number? What is Cameroon's US emergency number? And guess what? I think I posted a video about this last week. There's called the STEP program. You put in your passport, you put in where you're going to in case of an emergency, political, environmental disaster, whatever, they can find you. Okay, so you're paying for these things as an American citizen, and as an American citizen, fun fact, you never stop paying taxes. Doesn't care, doesn't matter if you move to Malawi and you've been there for 20 years, you're still supposed to technically pay taxes. So you're paying for those services. So prior to you even stepping foot in another country, again, I don't care if it's a safe country or a not so safe country, there's always one. I pray you find that rotten apple. But if in case you have everything in order, you need to join the STEP program. You, before you go, you need to find out what is the local embassy and consulate's emergency number. You find yourself in a jam, you can't think, or da 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 da. It's in your phone. Okay. All right. So women, especially, you need to find out expat women's group, men too. You got to know there's stuff that happened to men. You didn't hear what they was doing to men. Some American men in Colombia. Now these ones they're passport bros, but again, some things I just can't wish on anybody. Where what they was doing was when these guys would go, the girl would be affiliated with a gang. So what she would do, and this is why I say both male and female, because you could, everybody could get it. Okay, it don't matter where, everybody could get it. Um, so what was I gonna say? So what the girl would like, she'd be very sexy, beautiful body, beautiful face. She would say like she's gonna go sleep with the man for the night. The guy not knowing that she's affiliated with a gang, and basically she would drug the guy, and then the gang would come and rob the guy, and then like eat. Sometimes they'll beat them up, sometimes they'll leave them. I remember this one brother. They left him without like even no clothes, like extra clothes. Like he just had the clothes on him. He didn't have his passport, nothing. They had to go to the U.S. embassy and fingerprint him to find out his identity and stuff like that. That's how bad and jammed up you could be. You understand what I'm saying? So I wonder which lady happy. You could tell me. But yeah, like you gotta, yeah. Oh, the girl in Tunisia. The girl. Let me. If I'm gonna be very honest, Northern Africa has never been my jam because I historically have followed followed what they've done to sub-Saharan Africans or Sahel, even Africans from the Sahel within their own respective countries, whether it be Algeria, Morocco, whatever. And they have slave markets. They sexually harass women. I've heard what they've done to groups of women in Egypt and stuff like that. That's one of the north. You see that Northern African area. If you're gonna go there, cool. Marrakesh looks beautiful and all those things like that. But don't go there by yourself. Don't go there by yourself. Anyways, Northern Africa is like a really pretty much no go for me. I was thinking about going to Egypt just to go to the southern part to see more so like Nubian or Black Egyptians, but yeah. But yeah, you got to make sure you register for all this stuff. I don't care. Like I said, if it's a very tourist friendly destination, if it's a relatively safe place, I don't care. Tell the U.S. Embassy where you are and have the number on speed dial. All right. Okay, keep going. All right. Another thing I want you to do, talking about that guy who in Colombia who he got robbed and stuff like that. Keep digital copies of your passport IDs and visas. Okay, in case you need a run. This is what you need to do. Email it to yourself. Okay, because you should know the password to your email. Maybe the picture, if you put the picture on your phone, what if your phone gets stolen? Email your passport, your visa to yourself. Okay, and that way you can log in from another computer and pull it. Have we taken the notes? I hope we are. All right, because you never know. What if he snatches your phone? What if she snatches your phone? What if you get robbed? You don't have the picture in your phone. You don't have the access to the phone, but you got access to your email. Uh huh. Colombia, that's a popular hot spot. Everybody's going there. Tunisia, that's Northern Africa. Northern Africa is pretty well known for tourism. Tunisia is very popular with French people. You know what I'm saying? Egypt, very popular. All those places. Still don't mean you can't get jacked. I'm very much an advocate for traveling, but I've seen so many things. I've heard so many things. I've experienced myself. So these are the conversations that we have to have in case anything is to happen. Plan B and C is already downloaded. All right. So I'm going to encourage men and women to learn the laws around things like domestic violence in the host country. Again, I don't want you to end up like that movie where it was Not Without My Daughter. Again, go check it out if you want to go and see how bad it can be if you really don't know. But you need to have a basic understanding. If you're feeling like you need to date eventually, and that's a problem. See, this is not going to affect foreigners who are going with their husband happy, or for my married people. This is for solo people. You're not a piece of wood. You're gonna date, okay? You're gonna date. Even if you've been there 3 years, eventually you're gonna venture into that. You need to have some background knowledge on that. Another thing I want you to do, get local friends. Get local friends and hear how they navigate relationships. Hear some of the stuff that is pooled. Here, and that way, if something has happened to you, again, if you have local friends, because I said get expatriate immigrant friends, right? That's one set, but you need a local set because they know what their brothers are doing. They know what their sisters are doing. They know what their uncles are doing. You don't know because you're not from there. Okay. All right, so let's talk about reassurance. So, with all that being said, I still do think living abroad is still beautiful, it's transformative, and it is really, really worth it. But it's okay that we talk about the hard truths, okay? It's not after the situation happened where you're robbed pretty much naked with no passport in your hand, or somebody's trying to do this or that, or manipulate you or harm you. Because some of these things, another thing about victim shaming, sometimes victims are so ashamed of what has happened to them that they can't even speak about it, okay? And this is the whole point of this live, is to empower you. Even if you don't want to speak about it, I'm talking to you about it, okay? If this is to happen to you or somebody that these are some of the ways that you can navigate it. All right? Knowledge is protection. It's not here to ruin your dream life abroad. That is not what I'm trying to do. If you look at some of my videos, I'm quite happy quite often, but I've seen things. Okay? So knowledge is protection. If you don't know and you fall into the problem, that is when it becomes something that can be life threatening for you. Okay? Awareness is prevention. You need to know. I'm actually probably going to have a live about sexual assault abroad as well. I've heard of some situations too that I don't really like. One with a Kenyan friend of mine, she was in another country. I've heard of several situations when I was in the Peace Corps. So, you know, it's not that I'm telling you that, oh, these people do this, or it's a certain, as you notice, I've called so many different countries' names. There's no exception. None. If somebody's telling you there's an exception, be careful. Do not listen to that person. Because I always pull out the example of Japan. Japan is a very progressive country, right? It is a very wealthy nation. It is a power in Asia. But in Japan, in the trailway systems, they have a women's only cart. And then some people, they saw it and they said, oh, this is so progressive. They have a women's only cart. The reason why they did it was because guys were touching on girls in the trains while they were standing. They were taking pictures under their skirts. So they did that as a preventative measure. Okay? So these are the things that you have to understand. You get me? And these are the things I'm trying to prevent from happening to you. Never ever fall in that delusion. There are good and bad people everywhere. Think about America. You don't see crazy people all the time. You're like, how do you? So going abroad, you don't escape that. Okay? If you want a little la la land, and I'm all for it, go to Paris for a week. Go for 2 weeks. Don't move there. Because, like, my sister lives in France, okay, with my niece. And, you know, how many times have I seen Syrian families laying on whole sofas? How many times are when you're going around the tourist areas, high areas for them to rob you? You don't really see the problems of a country until you live there. Every country has a sense of problem. Learn to be safe, learn to navigate it. See what you can deal with. But the key thing I want you to like the whole thing I'm talking about today, domestic abuse abroad. You're not thinking that when you're thinking to move to Thailand or wherever, Jamaica or wherever it is that you're going to. You're not thinking about that. But where you thinking is abroad is somebody's home. And they're humans. It's not like they're these mythical creatures that they're flawless. You hear me? All right. All right. So again, where you live is abroad. Where you live is abroad to someone else. Someone else. No place is immune to abuse. but no one has to face it alone. Use that embassy number. All right, guys. So let's keep building community, not just for adventure, but for safety too, and for healing too. If you're, especially if you're going to Ghana, I have resources for you because that's where I'm based. But you need, if you're not in Ghana, I encourage you obviously to find out these resources. The National Domestic Violence Hotline in America, they actually have a chat. So let's say you're in somewhere else like Vietnam or something, even though you might not be able to call their 1-800 number, you can hit the chat. Okay. If you feel like you need a third person party, you don't want to tell anybody in your diaspora group something's happening to you, but you want to talk to some professionals, they have a chat. So you could hit up their chat, okay? All right, guys. So that's it for me today. Hate to give you guys such a somber topic, but it's a necessary topic. Feel free to share the live with anybody who you think may need it. You never anticipate these things, but it's always good to be ready for them on the offensive. Okay. Yeah. So I'll open up the floor for a minute. Oh, Happy don't even need this live, but maybe you, I don't know, you meet like a young diaspora girl or boy and they need it. Then you know what I'm saying? But serious, don't isolate yourself. Don't let yourself get manipulated. Make sure you have your own legal routes. Make sure you have your own information, okay? And okay, D, I will go ahead and get to it. In fact, I got a few emails that I want to get to now. Yeah. So, all right, guys. Well, thank you for coming to the live. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I probably will eventually make a full YouTube video on this. I have like a whole list that I haven't even got into. But yeah, thank you again for liking the live. And yeah, like D just emailed me. I'm an email away. You gotta give me like 48 hours though. I try to do it within the same day, but sometimes sometimes you can't hold me accountable. But all right, guys. Well, it was a pleasure. Please be safe. Traveling and being abroad is amazing, but you need to know how to navigate it. Make sure that even if you're not interested in a professional service, you have it ready in case that you fall into something that is not ideal. All right. All right, guys. So enjoy your weekend. I'll see you guys next week. All right, guys. Bye bye.